Hi, I'm Mark, this is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the SwitchBot Keypad Vision. Now at the start of this video I want to tell you guys that SwitchBot sent me this to review, but it comes with absolutely no conditions. I'm not paid to make this video, I've just been sent this product for free and I can say whatever I like about it after using it for about a month. And the SwitchBot Keypad Vision is the new keypad from SwitchBot that includes facial recognition. That means if you use this keypad, you can unlock your SwitchBot Smart Lock using your face, your finger, a key code and an NFC card. Now you can either pick up this keypad as part of the new SwitchBot Lock Ultra pack, which comes with a SwitchBot Hub Mini with Matter, as well as the Lock Ultra and its keypad, and that will cost you about £300. If you already have the SwitchBot Lock Pro and you just want to get this fancy new keypad, it's going to cost about £150 on its own. For any of the above, however, there are discount codes available and I'll pop those below for you. And this new keypad Vision is slimmer than SwitchBot's previous keypads for going with their smart locks, but it is in fact wider. If you're interested in the dimensions, it's got a depth of 30mm, a height of 131mm and a width of 65mm. The design of this looks super smart with a black body and rounded edges. And I do think it looks better than SwitchBot's Keypad Touch. The bottom has a place where you can plug in a USB-C cable to recharge it, and of course a rubber cover for that when it's outside and not being charged. Then from top to bottom on the front you have the face scanning area, the keypad which has the NFC reader on it as well, and then a lock button. Finally at the bottom you've got the fingerprint scanner and a button which can eventually be used to control the SwitchBot doorbell. That means it can act as a ringer as well as the one that's going to come with SwitchBot's new video doorbell. This functionality isn't yet available, so I haven't tested it. So let's talk about spec. So firstly, this keypad can operate between -20 and 45 degrees Celsius. It's also IP65 rated, so it's perfectly fine to have outside. Now, in my review for the SwitchBot Lock Ultra a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that my old keypad Touch had weathered badly, and SwitchBot have since reached out and told me that actually the new ones don't weather like that, and this one certainly shouldn't because of a different material it's made of. Of course, only time will tell with that, but I will let you know if it does weather badly. When it comes to security in this device, it's worth noting that your fingerprints and faces are stored locally. And a big thing to talk about spec with this new keypad is the new facial recognition. And this is 3D facial recognition, and SwitchBot say it can recognise faces within 1 second. It has built-in 850 nm infrared light for dark environments and uses over 30,000 infrared light points to generate a millimetre level facial map. What this means is that SwitchBot say with a distance of 0.6 and 0.8 meters and a height of 1.2 to 2 meters, it has a false recognition rate of less than 0.0001%, even with different styles and makeup, so if you're wearing sunglasses or different makeup patterns. I'll talk more about my experience with this later on in the video, but I haven't found it as reliable as I'd like it to be. The fingerprint scanner on the device, however, is very responsive and is a semi-conductive fingerprint scanner. It can store up to 90 regular fingerprints and 10 emergency fingerprints. And then the key codes themselves support between 6 and 12 digit codes, and again it can store up to 90 regular ones and 10 emergency ones. It also supports one-time codes and temporary codes. And again, as I've said, it supports NFC cards and it can support up to 100. Inside this device is a 5000 mAh battery. This is a rechargeable battery that's recharged via USB-C. SwitchBot say if you unlock or lock 12 times a day using this keypad, it will last for up to 12 months. Of course, I haven't been able to test that in a month, but so far battery is holding up well. Of course, when battery's running low, you'll get a notification so you can recharge it with plenty of time. And of course, because the SwitchBot Lock Pro and SwitchBot Lock Ultras are retrofit locks, you can still use a key from the outside if the keypad was to fail. So let's talk about setup. And personally, I would recommend pairing it with the SwitchBot app before you stick it anywhere. You do this by going into the SwitchBot app and hitting the plus at the top and then selecting the device and following the instructions on screen. You can mount it with the included screws or sticky pad, and it also comes with an angled bracket if you do want to put it at a slight angle. I've used a sticky pad and had it stuck on my door for the last month. This meant installation was really simple, and the main thing to get right is making sure you mount it at the right height for the height of people in your household. So generally speaking, SwitchBot recommend mounting it at a height of roughly 1.2 meters. This means it will work for anyone between 110 and 180 centimeters tall. Of course, if you've got a household of short people, you can adjust it accordingly, and the same if you've got a household of tall people. As part of the setup process, you also bind it to one of your SwitchBot locks. So for me, that's the SwitchBot Lock Ultra. If you want to check out the review for that brand new lock from SwitchBot, I'll link that below as well. And of course, at this point, you can add key codes, NFC cards, fingerprints, and faces. It is worth noting that you have to have at least one key code on the device in order to be able to use the fingerprints and NFC cards and faces. But once you've added them, you can remove the key code. So let's talk about using it. And I'm going to talk about using each of the different pieces of functionality. So firstly, regardless of which way you use to unlock it, once it actually unlocks and confirms it, the lock responds within about a second. This is pretty quick. The same goes for locking, and if you want to lock your smart lock, you just press the lock button on the keypad. Again, it responds in about a second. If you do have a multi-point door, we have to lift the handle, you do still have to lift the handle in order for the lock to work. This is pretty much the same for every single retrofit smart lock out there. And then when it comes to unlocking, you can do that in a variety of ways, as I said, so let's talk about each of those. And let's start off by talking about fingerprints. And I think even with the new facial recognition, this is my favourite way to use it. That fingerprint scanner is really responsive and works really well, even when it's a little bit wet outside. You get a little noise to confirm that it's been successful. One of the really nice options is the option for emergency fingerprints. That means you can designate one of your fingers for you to use in an emergency. So let's say someone is forcing you to open your door, you can use a different fingerprint, they won't know that that's what you're doing, but someone will get an email to say you've been forced to open your door. This is a really nice little security feature that SwitchBot have. And then secondly, you've got NFC cards. And again, when using these with a SwitchBot NFC card, this works really well. Thirdly, you've got key codes. Now, of course, if you've got a 12-digit code, this is going to take slightly long to put in, but again, it works really well. Those buttons are nice and clicky, and there's all sorts of options with the key codes as well. And with all of them, you put the key code in and then hit the tick, and the lock kicks into play. And as I said when I was talking about spec, these key codes can be between 6 and 12 numbers long, and the longer the number, the more secure the key code is. You can also manage these remotely via the SwitchBot app, which is great if you've got an Airbnb. In order to do this, you are going to need a SwitchBot hub. So either the SwitchBot Hub 2, Hub 3, which I'm reviewing in a couple of weeks' time, or the SwitchBot Hub Mini would matter. You cannot manage these key codes via Apple Home, you have to do this in the SwitchBot app. So let's talk about 4 key code types. So firstly, you've got the permanent key code type, and this is exactly what it says in the tin. Until you delete it, it is a permanent key code. Next, you have temporary codes. These are perfect for Airbnb hosts. These can be active for anything between 1 hour and 5 years, and you set that when you set it up. Then we have one-time codes. These are basically once and done. So if you've got someone who needs to come in and drop off a parcel. I should add that I would never trust a parcel delivery driver, especially Amazon, to drop something into my house. But the option's there if you've got a use for a one-time passcode. And then finally, there's also the emergency passcodes, which act a little bit like the emergency fingerprints. So it's a passcode you can put in that will still unlock your door, but it will send an email to someone to say that you've opened it under duress. And then finally, for ways to open, let's talk about faces. And this uses that new infrared 3D facial maps that SwitchBot have been working on. And the idea is that you walk up to your door, it recognises your face straight away and it unlocks your lock. And that infrared facial recognition means that it shouldn't recognise the wrong person. And this is one of those things where you want this technology to be super sensitive, but in practice I've really struggled with the facial recognition. Initially I actually had issues getting it to recognise my face at all, and so I had to reach out to SwitchBot support for some help. One of the things they got me to do was to add my face for a second time, and this seemed to resolve most of my issues. And from my conversations with support, this largely seems to come down to where your actual scanner is. So mine is outside, and of course conditions outside vary a lot. That meant because it was quite a bright day when I first scanned my face, it struggled to recognise me on other days. That means what I'd recommend doing if you are going to set up facial recognition with this is I'd add your face a couple of times when weather changes, especially if you're going to have this outside. The weird thing is, having watched a couple of other reviews of the Keypad Vision, this isn't an issue anyone else seems to have had. I'd be really interested to know if you've got one and you've picked one up, whether you have the same issue as me. When it is working properly, however, if you are a little bit too far away, it will ask you to stand nearer and vice versa. You can also open up the keypad in the app and test it out. And I think what this boils down to is that this will be better to use if you are somewhere where the light is a bit more consistent. So if you have it under a porch, or if you have it indoors. I think if somewhere where it's outside and there's no shade, it might struggle a little bit more in different light conditions. Although, like I said, since I took a second version of my face, it has worked better. I also think this is something that can be improved with firmware updates over time, and so I'll keep putting updates below as I'm kind of continuing to test it and see how I get on. And this leads us nicely to say, well, what's the verdict? And the Keypad Vision works really well with the Lock Ultra. It's great that it's also compatible with the Lock Pro, and the lock responds quickly when you use it. The design is a big improvement on SwitchBot's previous keypads, and the key codes, NFC cards and fingerprints are great and really responsive. But for me, the facial recognition isn't quite there yet. However, I do think this is something that can be improved with software, and I'd also recommend picking this up because I do think this looks better than that other keypads, and for a little bit more money, I do think it's worth it for something that is better. If you've got any questions about it, do stick them below. I'll make sure I keep posting updates on how I'm getting on with facial recognition, and I might even do a YouTube short about it in the future. If you do want to pick one up, I'll put a link below to this on Amazon and SwitchBot's website. I'll put the packs with the Lock Ultra and the standalone packs as well. With SwitchBot products, it's always worth checking both Amazon and SwitchBot and different deals and codes because they all vary quite regularly. Those links below will take you to Amazon or SwitchBot, whichever country you're in, and they are affiliate links. That means if you use that link and make a purchase, I'll get a very small cut of what you spend at no cost to yourself, and that just helps this channel out because I don't take sponsored videos and this isn't my full-time job. If you use one of those links, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.